Just like Pan African Resources, Palabora Mining issued a further cautionary on the 24th of February regarding the intention of two of their largest multinational shareholders to divest their shareholding in the company. Rio Tinto, who owns 57.7%, and Anglo American, another 16.8% stake, announced last September that they plan to sell their respective stakes. The country's IDC is said to be a leading contender to take over these stakes. And Anthony, you hold it in your portfolio. Do you have any further clarity? Has the IDC just thrown their hat into the ring, or is there clear intention there in terms of taking up Rio and Anglo stakes?
Well, I think that there's a lot of rumours. There's a rumour that Exxaro might be interested. But I think really this company should be viewed as in the context of a wonderful cash flow generator. It produced 1.6 billion rands worth of cash in the year, calendar year and financial year to the end of December last year. It sits with 2.1 billion rands worth of cash on the balance sheet. It really is a magnetite producer as opposed to a copper producer, about 68 odd percent.
Can we take a step back? What does magnetite do?
Magnetite is was a substitute for iron ore, which is hematite. And basically in a very high iron ore price environment,
people will opt for a substitute.
Yes,
so it's substitute. As good as?
It's not as good as hematite, but in a high price environment, it's a good substitute, much cheaper substitute.
Well, there we go. This is starting to sound good. We're leading to that red hot scenario. I'm hoping at the end of the discussion.
Look, it's got a 7.5 billion rand market cap, so it's a sizable operation. It's one of South Africa's kind of oldest mining companies. It's a single deposit property. It resulted in the development of the town of Palabora, from which great things have come.
Anthony's checking your facts.
Not the least of which
has his finger on the pulse on the
bowler Dale Steyn, and a number of other important South African assets have come out of Palabora. But clearly Anglo and Rio have got much bigger fish to fry, and they've kind of reached the point where it's not clear that they want to proceed with the recapitalization of the mine and the subsequent development and the mine expansion, which could be expensive. So it now sits in a situation where you've got to wonder yourself, well, if I'm a minority shareholder and those two big giants want to get out, where is this thing going? Because obviously if parties are rumored, both local and foreign, to be interested in this, you might want to go along for the ride.
Well, before you go any further, are you asking yourself that question? If the big guys are exiting, why should I stay?
I try not to get too wrapped up in what might or might not happen. What I do look at is the fundamentals of the company. And then we might price. I think you can say that at least there's a free option against the potential acquirers of this company. So you're in this thing on a great fundamental, on a valuation that's 3.5 times earnings. I saw you flash up there on a 7.5% dividend yield. I mean, what could be better? With a free option against the potential acquirer. If controllers change, they have to make an offer to you as a minority. So embedded in this great valuation is a free option. But really the investment case sits on the fact that they're sitting on 240 million tons stockpile of magnetite, which really they just have to shovel up and put onto a train and export out of Maputo.
I have to go back to ask you why Anglos and Rio don't see the same value that you're referring to.
It's just too small.
Is it too small?
Yeah.
Just a tiny blip on the screen.
Absolutely. But
they're developing, iron ore deposits in Western Australia, which, are so large, they're as big as a state in Brazil. So for them, this thing is kind of
How did they land up getting the stakes in the first place? Why did they even bother?
Well, I think these were legacy assets. But really, to go back to the idea that the investment case is around about this 3 million tons that they're exporting of magnetite a year. The consensus view is that TFR is just inefficient, cannot run a train on time, and battles to be able to deliver existing capacity year on year. But the reality is that TFR is starting to get its act together. And if you want to play that theme, Palabora is a great way to do that. We think they can up the 3 million tons to 10 million tons, and the growth can triple from here.
Just a question, from what you've been hearing, because you're invested in the stock, do you get the sense that a buyout, if it goes to another party, because of the extent of the holdings by those big groups, will result in a compulsory delisting? Or do you think it's conceivable that someone would use the market and that you could get some upside because you're the sort of rump shareholder and the whole thing gets ratcheted forward?
Well, I think that to push a compulsory delisting through, they need more than 90%. So it will have to be a very attractive offer to get not only Anglos and Rio to sell their stake, but also all the minorities. So I would imagine that that this company will remain listed. I think it's unlikely that you'll get a knockout offer in this kind of environment. But we would be very happy to stay invested. We would, in fact, want to stay invested for the long haul.
Paul, any concerns from your side that you'd like to throw forward?
Well, I did notice in the financials there's something about a derivative liability. So what is that? Is that some kind of forward sale of copper or something that they've done?
Correct. When they raised debt some years ago, they put a copper hedge in place. Those things ran out in 2013. So you've got 1 year to go in those things and should release, I think, about R1 billion in extra EBITDA.
Hot or not?
Well, look, I'm very positive on iron ore and on copper because that's part of the whole growth industrial China blah, blah, blah story. So this wouldn't be my first choice, but basically listening to Anthony tonight, I think I've been convinced it's hot.
It's hot. Anthony?
If you can withstand the volatility of the share price, it's quite thinly traded, and as a result, it gets knocked around quite a lot by vagaries of the market. But the fundamentals are very compelling. We think that there's lots more upside as TFR delivers on the magnetite ramp up in exports. We think this is very hot.
Now, how does very hot compare with red hot? Because Pan African Resources was red hot. Is that correct?
Indeed.
And this is very hot. So which is hotter?
Red hot is very hot, very, very hot. This is very hot.